is it too late for me to become an animator? I'm 30. Are you kidding me? You live once. Once. You get one chance to ride this ride we're on planet Earth. Live it.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Bit Between. I'm Sabi Mahmood, aka Sabdog, and today we have Justin Rasch with us. How's it going, Justin?
Going great. Thanks for having me.
So Justin is an animator. In fact, I'll let you introduce yourself, Justin. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, I'm an animator. I work in 2D, CG, and stop motion animation. I've been working professionally for the last 25 years in video games, television, and film. And me and my wife have a studio, even though I have a full-time job working for Blizzard Entertainment as a video game animator and cinematics. We make our own short films at home in our garage.
Well, before we go on to all that stuff, let's start with the beginnings of your animation career. You've spoken on your YouTube channel a little bit about the inspiration behind that, and you said it was like the creature feature. That's it. Yeah, sorry, the creature features that you watched on the weekends, and then the Adventures of Nim. Do you want to expand a little bit on that and how that's kind of influenced you to where you are now?
I think, like most young people, you gravitate towards whatever you gravitate. It's like soccer or, baseball or art or cartoons, toys, whatever. And I gravitated very heavily towards animation. I saw a few, I guess it even starts with like children's book, just the illustrations in children's book that my mom would read to me. That would make me want to draw, and then as I got a little more, developed as a human being, I saw some animated films. One of them was called Secret of Nim. And it was, a much more adult animated film at the time, as opposed to like maybe Disney or just the fast food kind of cartoons you saw every day after school. And it felt a little bit scary. But it had incredible characters and rich colors and magic, which I'm very into, fantasy, and it really sparked me on a big lifetime of drawing. And growing up, watching the creature features on the weekend. That's what we had them here in the United States. It was like monster movies, anything science fiction or horror that had creatures and suits or stop motion animated monsters was incredibly inspirational to me, because I had no idea how it was done, but it was, magic. So as I got even older, I started finding magazines that had little nuggets and pictures of the animators kind of moving these figures around. And then I would see a little special, because this is before really even cable, like there was a few channels where I would see every once in a while, like the Disney Channel kind of started coming out, and you'd see behind the scenes of the artist flipping their drawings, and you're like, wow, that's how they do animation. And that's a job. Holy crap, people do this stuff and get paid. That's amazing. So it kind of opened my mind to the possibilities. And I grew up in a place called Florida in America, where there was Disney World not too far away, and I knew Disney did a lot of animation, so it felt like there was something there to maybe tap into. And then as I grew older, the special effects films from the 80s, Terminators, RoboCops, Willow, like all the things that still use stop motion and special effects, practical effects, masks, creatures, miniatures, was really inspiring. So me and my brother kind of thought we would get into special effects as a career someday. And we went to art school, an art school called Art Institute of Pittsburgh. And they had one of the only programs in the world that had a real special effects program where you could learn from people that did movie effects. And while I was in school, I was also doing 2D animation, right? So I was doing both the things that I love. And a film called Jurassic Park came out, which kind of blew the world's mind. It was just like, holy cow, I've never seen anything that moved so well looked so good and created this new level of illusion for effects work. And I went and changed my major the next morning after seeing that film to CG, because I already had a kid at that point in my life, and I was like, okay, that's kind of the future for jobs, because I needed a job, right? And also for, amazing effects possibilities. So when I graduated college, I my first job was at a Japanese video game company, which was totally, again, out of left field. I didn't expect to get into video games, but it was using my animated skills, and also now this new computer animated skills that I had learned in school. So that's kind of how I got into the field, and my original inspirations.
Yeah, and it must have been weird though, because the 3D programs that you would have been using back then will have been
Oh yeah.
nowhere near as good as
Oh
they are
no.
now. I mean, we have
No.
things like Blender, which is free, you have Maya, you have all these incredible programs that you can make really complex stuff like you have.
Yeah.
So what's it like having learned, was it on 3DS that you were learning
Yeah. Yep.
back then?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then having
3D.
to kind of move forward and then apply onto these new programs.
Well, it's kind of fascinating because, I never considered myself a technical person. I was a lot more just artistic. But I took to this 3D software. It was called 3DS 3 or 4 back then. And because it, for the first time in my life, I felt like I could make a whole movie on this one machine. Like, it had cameras and lighting and animation and modeling, sculpting, like all these things that I loved. And I really took to it. So I was like, wow, I have this whole contained little universe where I can make my own movies. And even though it was primitive relatively, it gave me the concepts and the basic ideas of how 3D worked, so, or 3D software worked. So it was kind of easy to carry those same concepts into higher level software as it developed. And also as a young person in 3D software, you kind of develop at the same time as the software develops. So I was putting it to use right away in my first video game job, and then every time a new software would come out, you'd have to learn new stuff, right? So your brain is constantly evolving with these new abilities and new softwares. So it was cool. But mainly the thing that made it different is I was an artist. So there was a lot of technical people that knew the programs, but they weren't artists. So it gave me this little edge where over time, you saw all the technical people kind of get pushed out by the artist people, because as soon as they learned how to use the tools, they were able to develop at a higher level, because they had this ability that was something a lot of the technical people didn't. So it was an interesting transition, and I was right on the crest of that wave.
Yeah. So essentially you would learn as you went along, and you just kept on learning and kept on learning, to the point where you just pushed out anybody else who already knew it, because you had that 2D animation background and as an artist.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think that you can learn how to be an artist?
Absolutely. It was so fascinating. I've talked about this many times. Like, when I was in school and I was young, right? So you think like, oh, you're born an artist. You have inherent skill that God has given you in whatever way, right? And like, me personally, like, I felt that way for a long time, until I saw firsthand people that I knew that were not good artists work really hard, and they became good artists. And I was like, wow, like it kind of broke my mind. I was like, hey, you know what? Anybody can be an artist. Anyone. It's just freaking hard work. And it kind of went into everything in life, right? Like, obviously, if you're not born with super springy genetics in your legs, you're not going to win the 100-meter dash at the Olympics, right? You have to have genetics and work really hard. But there's certain things, like in life, like art, things might come a little bit easier to some people. But absolutely, if you do the miles, you work your butt off, you can totally become a good artist, no matter what.
Right. Because I'm trying to become, as opposed to become, I'm just trying to take hold of a lot of my artistic capabilities. I'm currently like surrounded by PC parts, because I'm building a PC so I can get into Blender, actually.
Awesome.
So what kind of tips would you have for somebody who's trying to get into 3D animation?
Well, I can tell you firsthand, it's like it's even another step beyond that. So if you like, for me instantly, I started it traditionally, right, with pencils and basic tools of art. Uh, as each level, you leave that, or you leave stop motion where you're using your hands and you're sculpting and creating on the computer. So much, it's so attainable because the computer does so much for you. Of course, you have to develop your artistic eyes and skills, that it's even easier for a person who might not have had an art background to get in there and succeed. To get it to the highest level, you have to study art. It's a different kind of art, but you still study art. You still have to know anatomy and form, and all the things you have to develop to be a good person, a good modeler, environment artist, a lighting person, or an animator, of course. But as far as study the arts, okay, so that's going to inform you. Absolutely, you're going to learn the technical skills you need to know to learn Blender or to learn Maya or whatever software you're learning. But then if you want to be an animator, you have to study the craft. The craft of animation is the principles of animation, how people move, acting, performance, like all of the things that are going to make your work special, not just moving smoothly, but special and communicate and magic. So for you, that's animation, right? So if it's modeling, for instance, you need to study not just how to technically model and use the tools in the program. You have to understand form, right? And lines and that, like I was just saying, anatomy, and then how to technically use that knowledge that you just learned through reading books, through life drawing, through studying anatomy charts, whatever it's going to be, to this new tool that you have. Lighting, it's the same thing. If lighting in the real world, that knowledge of how light works is going to transfer into your lighting skills in the program. You're still going to be using a 3-point setup, bounce. You're going to be playing with color, like it's the same stuff. So you'll be studying whatever your speciality is in your program, environments, modeling characters, rigging, like creating bone structures for the characters, and technically how to make them move properly and interact. All of that is just self-study, I think. You can learn it nowadays, which is amazing, all on YouTube. You don't even have to go to school anymore. The information is pretty much free out there, or very inexpensive, and really a lot more to the point than traditional education. Most people that go to traditional education, you learn a lot of things except for what you'll really be doing in the real world when you get a job. That's where you really learn the real stuff. So there's a lot of programs now where the degree doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what you're doing, especially in the arts. Obviously, if you have to be a doctor, you have to still go to school. If you have to be a lawyer, you still have to go to school. But there's in our field, the creative arts, so much of it is really about what you can do than a piece of paper and spending $1 million to go to school. So it's really, the world's changing in that way, and I like it. I think it's awesome.
I think it's incredible. Like I for example learned how to use editing software to make videos completely free online. Didn't pay a single penny.
It's amazing.
And I just think it's awesome that somebody with nothing, essentially. I mean, obviously I've got a laptop, or you have to have a device, but even with your phone, you can literally just make movies on your phone. There's a really famous movie, I think it's called Tangerine or Grapefruit. It's some sort of fruit it's named after. And it won awards, and it was filmed entirely on a phone.
It's amazing. I mean, there's more access than ever before to information, obviously, to less and less excuses on doing it. It's really just the gumption and the character that you bring to it, and also the go get it, work hard and you can get it. I tell so many of the people that I meet with or talk to online every week, I'm like, it's all there, it's all for free. You just got to dig in, you got to do the time.
So let's touch back on the real education that you got outside of the Pittsburgh
yeah.
art school, Pittsburgh art school,
Yeah.
art school. What do you mean by real education? Because you've learned a lot of the theory, I'm guessing, at Pittsburgh, but what is it that's the real education that you learn when
So the
applying
real
everything?
education is basically, I learned like anything. You learn technical terms. You might learn some basic skill sets, abilities to bring to your larger work. But really, when you get a job or you're surrounding yourself, honestly, with other artists, which is why we go to art school, you're learning more from each other every day. You're taking the information in a way that's less like words on a piece of paper, like a list, and more practically applying it to your work. So when I have a task of creating a character and making them do a certain amount of actions or movements or communicating a certain piece of dialogue, uh, I'm getting feedback from other professionals, which is, making the information stick in a very different way. You're making mistakes at a different rate, and then paying for them in different ways. So like, how do you learn is through making mistakes, right? It really is like 90% of the time. If you're winning, if you're succeeding all the time, you're not learning as much as when you fail. So being at a real place where there's consequences, or there's other people that will help you not fail, or help, or you're failing, but you're failing on the clock. It allows you to quickly learn a lot of lessons, because the feedback loop is so fast, because you're developing, as opposed to just being in school, where you're really, the teachers in my schools were just like, yay, good job. That's more like what it is. Like, you're just doing an assignment. But in the real world, you have tasks, and are being held accountable for them constantly. So time management, uh, making quick choices, good choices, all of that stuff is where you're really learning. And then also, just like I said, the fundamentals of animation, which are just a list that you're like, oh yeah, I understand the fundamentals of animation. I can tell you them, all 12 of them right now, right? I can lay them out. But really, when you get out there, because you're applying them, it just seeps in a whole different way. So I think that's the real world education. So I guess what I'm getting to too is, when I was in school, you get more assignments, and that's why I think mentorships are so important, is because when you have a mentor, they're hyper focusing you on what matters in your field, while school is so big and broad that you don't really get great at any one thing. You don't focus. And really, in the real world, you have to focus to make a career. You have to figure out what you want to do, and really kick butt at whatever that task is, and then develop it. It's not a big, broad thing. And I understand schools do that because they want you to taste everything and then figure out what you like. But if you have a mentorship, or someone who can really guide you, a professional, towards what you want, it's so much more valuable, and so much more cheap, or so much less expensive, and time wise more efficient, than going and doing all this other stuff that really doesn't matter when you get out into the real world.
And if in the creative industry a lot of it's portfolio based or work based,
Oh yeah,
practical, then
it's
why
it's
bother?
100% portfolio based, and in the arts,
Yeah.
it's all about the portfolio. I don't care. I've never once looked at where anyone went to school or whatever. I look at the portfolio. That's what opens your door.
That's really interesting, that, because
Yeah.
I would have thought that maybe the art school that they went to might be slightly considered. No?
Well, it only is considered after you're interested in their artwork.
Ah,
You know what
okay.
I mean?
Okay.
If the artwork is awesome, I don't care. I don't care. I just don't care. That's all that matters, is what you can do. Are you a great artist? Are you doing great work, or work that catches my eye?
Yeah.
That's it. Then I look at the other stuff. Oh,
Right,
okay, they
okay.
went to the school. That's cool. That means that they had a pretty good education. But really, it doesn't matter if you see it. The person that went to that awesome school, if their work isn't showing good work, I don't care.
Yeah.
Again, so I just don't care.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's talk about dealing with criticism. I I feel like criticism is really important, at least constructive criticism, because, if I put a video out there or a podcast out there and people say, oh yeah, it was great. And then I say, have you got any feedback on anything, any suggestions for improvement? And they're like, no, it was good.
Right.
What does that mean to me? It means that well, I have nothing that I can go forward with and change to improve.
Sure.
And I think it's really important that people understand that criticism and making mistakes, like you say, is literally the thing that's going to make you better at what you want to do.
Absolutely. Every day. Growth is everything, right? And as an animator, specifically, that's what I do. Every day I'm judged, every single day. And as an artist, you're vulnerable and it hurts sometimes, and sometimes it's awesome. But you literally have to show your work to a director every day. And they say, yes, no, maybe, yes, I hate, I don't like, I love. It could be anything. But you're getting feedback every single day. And absolutely, that feedback is what makes you better. Mm-hmm. And it could be peer-to-peer feedback while you're just working with other animators. But you get it from the director every day because he's or she's the person that's telling the story, right?
Yeah.
And so you're learning little micro lessons constantly. And it really is how you grow, for sure.
Yeah. How important is it to surround yourself with people that are kind of in the same space as you?
Oh, I think it's invaluable. It's just like a warp zone or turbo tube. If you're not, surrounding yourself, even digitally, like a forum where you can get feedback, you're just in a bubble, right? So you don't, your eyes, I always say it to my daughter, I say it to anyone I work at, they're changing constantly as an artist. Every few, I don't know, months, a month, a week, it could be anything. I go like, I got new eyes. I tell my wife, hey babe, I got new eyes today. I can see today what I couldn't see yesterday. And my eyes have been changing every day for the last 25 years of being an artist, my whole life. But as a professional artist, I am growing so much that you just see things you didn't know. You're able to, you're developing your eye and your taste buds and your performance. Everything is changing so much. And I think that doesn't always come from you, right? Like, so I have a small group, very small, like 3-4 people, artists that I work with that I always go to as my go-to, like, I trust them. I can take their feedback without having my feelings hurt in some weird way. And then I have the directors, which are always giving feedback too. But I'm on a team of like 30, 35 animators and artists. So they're, you go into a room and you have dailies where you show your shot in front of all of your peers every day. And the director gives feedback, and maybe some of the other animators might throw in some feedback. But those that small group of 4 or 5 friends that I have that I send off to the side before I even show the big room, they are my trusted, people that I'm like, okay, we're all on the same page. We all want to grow. We're all learning. That's like my little subgroup that I trust, as well as the big one. So I think it's really, really, really important.
How did you actually meet them people?
Oh, through years of working together or working on certain projects or just friendships like that you've developed over the years, because animation is a community. Like before, maybe I had these people that I work with that I trust. It was like forums, right? Like you would make animation groups or people that you've met online through various groups, basically a Facebook group or a animation subforum or something like that. Those people can be that exact group that I've met. But these guys I work with, so I'm obviously able to show them private work that the rest of the world I can't share with. So you always kind of have to have a subgroup, I think, within your structure, as well as, outside faces and people you can show if it's not private,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit more about the digital space and kind of side of things, because for those of you who aren't familiar with Justin, he's amassed, I think it's almost 1 million followers on TikTok now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Were you expecting that to happen?
Not expecting, but wanting, desiring, and aiming for it. So I was, this, I always say this, it's so weird. Like social media to me has been a new thing. I'm an older guy. I really was not interested in doing social media. I'm like, that's for young kids. And that's like, I don't have time for that. Like all the different things old people will say, right? Like I did that. And I was like, but I had a buddy who was like, Justin, you have to do it. You have to do it. And I also worked with a couple of friends who did it and found huge success, financial success, business success. And one of the things that I really want in life someday is independence, right? So I want to tell my stories, and I want to direct my own films, and financially not have to do so much of the 9 to 5 that I do, even though I love my job and I love what I do. I just am, as an artist, I want to tell my own stories. So I did it, and very quickly, I think it was like 5 months, I was over 500,000 followers, and then 900 very quickly after that. And I'm going to break 1 million very soon. I'm focusing this year on really diving into the social media because I've seen the success of it. Financial is starting to happen. Obviously, a following that I'm building is very real. So I'm seeing, I've grown as a human being, and I see the power of the internet, and I see the power of these groups and micro entertainment, and the possibilities that I can use this to step off and tell my own story. So I'm very, very much going in 2021.
But I think the problem I've seen with TikTok is people have a very short attention span. Right?
Absolutely.
15 seconds is the standard usually.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Even if it does go up to a minute, you can put stuff up there for a minute, but
sure,
people generally don't watch it. So are you trying to use it to build a following and people who admire your work? Or are you trying to use it to advertise your services to other people? What is it exactly that you want to do with it?
So I'm learning all this stuff, right? And one of the things is when you have one audience, it feeds your other audiences, right? So each one is different. Like TikTok is definitely fast food. It's young. But some of those people that are real fans of what I do will come over to Instagram, which is an older audience, and it has less fast food. You can put a little more content in there. And it also, brands that want to advertise with you. If you have a certain amount here on Instagram or YouTube or whatever you're on, right? Zen, whatever, all the different platforms, that number, feeding this number, it has value to them. So they're like, okay, they have 1 million on TikTok, that if I post myself wearing a shirt that's of a certain brand or holding a drink of a certain brand, that many people are going to see it. And it has a financial a number that's attached to it. If I go to Instagram, I can do the same thing. That audience has a certain financial number attached to it. So each one of them feed each other, and each group has something different to offer as far as like, but it's all developing your own audience, and it's all there's a certain percentage of each platform that are going to go into your super fan group, right? And like help you reach your super goals, right? They're going to watch every video I put up for 10 minutes on YouTube. There's the other ones that just want to see the quick feedback on TikTok of like a cool action animation. But then they'll come to your live streams, right? And live streams is a very different thing. And then there's ways financially that can pay you back with donations and requests. And it's really fascinating. I'm learning about it all, but I'm financially seeing that each one of them is helping each other out. So they all feed into each other, I guess is what it is. It's like an ecosystem of help. And all of them have grown all of my audiences, guaranteed.
The conversion rate is strange, though. Like I have a TikTok page, has about 6,000 followers, nothing too crazy. But my YouTube only has, I try not to pay attention to the numbers too much, but about 145 subscribers, which isn't a great deal. and I've posted snippets of my YouTube on there, and they haven't done too well. And I just feel like it's very, very difficult to convert people over from watching 10 seconds or 15 seconds of your content.
Right, especially from TikTok, man.
Yes.
Especially from TikTok. Like I said, people are inherently lazy and consumptionish. I mean, it's even interesting to see how few people will like something.
Yeah.
They don't even have the energy to go like, I like this.
Yeah.
To feed you back with a like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll just watch it, consume it, move on. Watch it,
Yeah.
consume it, move on. But like I said, there's a percentage that will come back and they become fans. And if you're interacting, it's really cool to interact with my fans. Then they do jump. They do make that jump. And those are the ones that really matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people can watch one of my time lapses and be really like, oh, cool, and consume it. And then that's it. It's gone forever. But the real ones who want to know how that dinosaur was made or how that character was made, they will go over to my YouTube and then subscribe and become a fan. So it's just kind of like playing the numbers games.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless, if your TikTok, even though they're not consuming or liking my YouTube or my Instagram, what they are is there are a number of people that will see my work, and then therefore I can set up brand deals.
Right. That makes
or
sense.
they might stop by my live stream and watch and maybe donate for some information or feed my education. Like I do private education. Maybe they want to take my class. That there's a direct transfer of all of that happening.
Mm-hmm. Cool. But this kind of route is a lot more non-traditional. The more traditional form is kind of basically trying to get into Hollywood, which is what you have achieved.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about that and Paranorman, which was a movie that you worked on and did really well on. I mean, I remember watching it when I was a kid, and then now I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the guy who helped and animated on this movie. So what did you learn working in Hollywood, and how does it compare to working outside of it?
Well, it's amazing. I'll tell you, as a person who grew up, like I said, watching monster movies, wanting to do special effects, it's a dream come true. When you go work on a feature film with 400 other artists and there's 40 stages with amazing sets and incredible puppets and a beautiful lighting and photography, it feels like old world movie making. It feels like you're on set for a year or 2 years watching a film get made one frame at a time. It feels amazing. Basically, imagine having the best artists, the best photographers, everyone of their specialty all together telling one story at the same time. It feels amazing. I in my heart is so full every time I'm on a feature film project. And I feel so fortunate and lucky to be there. It's magic. The problem is that it's just for that feeling. It's personal satisfaction as an artist, right? So you're busting your butt for somebody else's story. You're busting your butt for some other person to make millions of dollars, maybe, who knows, which is fine, right? But what this new social media stuff is opening up is, even though it's maybe micro entertainment, fast food, that is yours and it lives with you forever. So if I do a viral video, which I've had several viral videos, and I put that somewhere now, like I'm learning this, I take that off TikTok where it got 19 million views, and I put it on my YouTube where someday it can get 1 million, 19 million views. Now I'm getting paid. I get paid every commercial, every view. And that now is what this stuff they call, evergreen content, right? Like new generations of people might find this video and I'm going to get paid forever for something I made. And that can set up independence, right? I've had several artist friends that have become independent just doing these personal little animations. So it's cool. You don't need a studio. You don't need, some production company to buy off on your project. It's all you, and you have every opportunity to find huge success with something that came from your heart or your mind. So I really, really am excited about the opportunity for that, right? Because you can work the Hollywood system your whole life, be an animator, make a living, but really not go anywhere, just kind of make a living, right? But this other new opportunity now allows you to create something that will feed you forever, and also, um, create independence, right? To where maybe, like for me, for instance, I want to make my own stories. Someday, if I do this other thing enough, I'm going to be able to tell my own stories and have an audience that wants to watch it. So it's really, really a special combination that I know a lot of the people that have been in the business for a long time are looking to jump into social media uh, for that exact reason versus the other way around, where, of course, any young artist is going to want to go feel what it's like to work in Hollywood or at a, Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network or whatever big studio, Disney, DreamWorks. So I get both, and I enjoy both too. I really do. But I'm definitely, as an older artist developing my community and my online presence, I am very interested in telling my own stories and finding financial independence with an audience that I create too.
Because, like you say, at the moment, a lot of the work that you've been doing, even recently, you work for Blizzard. You've done. I saw the Masters of the Universe little animation that you did.
Yeah.
It's really awesome stuff. But like you say, it's for somebody else.
Yeah.
So, what are your plans going forward when it comes to building your own stories?
Well, I've been writing with my family, my wife, for years. So we have a lot of feature film ideas that we want, a lot of feature film. I should say, like I said, I grew up on creature features. I grew up on Secret of Nim, these animated films. I have stories that I want to tell. So we are using my growing power as an independent artist and my growing audience as an independent artist to have clout. Because I can tell you that having 1 million followers, it carries clout these days. To pitch my concepts to the larger studios, or to, who knows, because this is changing every day. If you build a large enough audience, you can self-fund. You can get your audience to support you in this filmmaking process. So like, these are all goals of mine. But really, I'll be pitching to places, like Netflix or whatever major studio that would listen to me, our ideas. And then also pitching to my fans. If I get there someday to where I have enough people to be like, hey, this is an idea I have. Do you guys feel like supporting it? And I found some small success even in my little experience where I ran a Kickstarter on one of my last stop motion films, and we raised $20-some thousand.
Wow.
To do the music for our film, to hire the people to do the score for our short. And I mean, that was years ago when I just had a blog.
Mm-hmm.
So now here I am, jumped into this new social media world. I can imagine that only gets bigger.
Yeah.
That if you have enough steady supporters, I would be able to raise money someday for a film that I want to make. So we're very much excited about this new ability and opportunity.
Have you heard of the concept of 1,000 true fans?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And
so true.
100%. For those of you who don't know, I'm just going to quickly explain it. It's basically that, let's pretend I'm a creative and I want to make a living out of my work. If I have 1,000 true fans who are willing to pledge £100 to me every year, that means I have £100,000 every year.
Yeah, amazing.
Which is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's true. Like, I'm connecting with my audience. I started recently doing live streams every Friday, right? And I'm really sitting there and starting to see faces that regularly come, comments from people that are regular. And I'm creating these real relationships with people. And I'm positive out of that 1 million followers I have 100 fans that are true fans. They watch everything I do. And that's a perfect example of it. If I'm really creating something that they value in this relationship, and also in art that I want to create, I mean, that's That's massive. That's
Yeah.
massive. That really adds up.
Have you had a look at Patreon?
I have, man. Like, this is again part of me being the older guy. Is like each time I add a new thing to I'm like, ah, I have to learn Patreon now.
Yeah.
Like, I hang out with my wife. I hang out with my family. I create art. I do like sports. I do like, and then I animate all night, right?
Yeah.
Like I do all, and then I work all day. Like I have so much going on in my days. Like I'm doing TikTok, I do Instagram, I do Twitter, I
Yeah.
do Zen, I do YouTube. I'm creating all content for all these platforms, and then Patreon is the newest one. And it's funny you mentioned that because just a few days ago, I had a buddy say, "Justin, you got to get on Patreon," and I'm like, "Oh, and I teach too. I teach privately."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "I don't have time. My brain is full." But I think I have to really look into it because I think there is an
100%.
opportunity there to, for the people that can't afford my full classes, because I charge a real educational cost. Like any like online mentoring, I'm very similar in my pricing because I've been doing this a long time and I have a lot of information and it's private. But for the people that can't maybe afford that, a Patreon might be a really nice in between where they still get to access me and have some real education, but and also support my art because I'm like right now I'm making not only online content but an original film that I've been working on with my wife, and we want to finish this thing in a year, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of time. But having people that would support that would be really really cool.
I think. Sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I think you'll be surprised how much some people can make on Patreon. I know there's a podcast called two creators who have a podcast called the TMG Podcast, and it's mainly just a funny podcast. It's nothing. I can tell that their demographic is relatively young, but when I had a look at the other day, they're making around about 55 grand a month.
Right.
55 grand a month from their Patreon supporters, which is just out of this world. On top of that, they have sponsorships and advertising, like
Sure.
you've said. They have other things. So, like, could you even imagine being at this point where creators can independently fund themselves through their fans? Like 20 years ago, could that even be imagined back then?
Yeah, it's incredible. The world has changed so much in that way, and I am always kind of downgrading myself as far as like it's unfortunate, but I'm like, nobody wants to know this from me. Nobody wants to see my talk or my version of words in whatever subject. But I'm wrong, and there is an audience for that stuff. So it's hard. I just have to think about like how what I could offer through Patreon that would make people want to come. Like a podcast makes sense because it's just entertainment, right? It's straight up verbal entertainment. They can put it on when they work and just listen and devour it. What I do is, I don't know if it would be, I guess it could be like a podcast based thing. But I think of it as more like a technical situation where I'm teaching like sculpting, or I'm teaching molding or animation tidbits. I would just have to really, get strategic in what I'm offering and how that paywall works. But I think you're right. You mentioned it too. I should definitely look into it.
Yeah. This is a question that I kind of thought about beforehand. How difficult do you think it is for creatives to make a living then with all these things?
I think it's I don't know. I think it's easier than ever before. I think it really is. Like I'm getting blown out of the water every week with the newest idea of how people are making money. And it's like, who would have ever thought that? Like there's something ridiculous. This is 100 ways I can drink water. Like whatever you can imagine can become entertainment these days. And I'm like, opening toys. That blew me away the first time.
Yeah.
Hey, this is me unboxing a toy. What? You're making money through unboxing a toy? It blew my mind. Like, and that makes sense. That I'm like, okay, that's entertaining. I can see that. There's so many different things that I never could have imagined would be considered entertainment in a way to make money. So it's really all here. I think it's easier than ever. It's just finding a concept that lands. I saw someone reading rap lyrics in slow motion, and he's got like 3 million followers. I'm like, what? How does this?
Wow.
What? like it's mind blowing. So really, opportunity is through the roof. You just have to find a weird little niche and then ride it. And then and there were I have a friend whose ex-girlfriend was a stewardess on or a flight attendant, and she does all these little flight attendant skits, and she, you know, 3 million followers or whatever. She put up, she's from Canada, so she wasn't able to monetize on TikTok, but she put up like she would be making like close to $12,000 a month on TikTok right now if she was monetized. And I was like, that's awesome. That's awesome. That right there shows everything, how you can really, really find success with this stuff.
That is phenomenal. Touching upon that thing you said about finding a niche, that's something that I'm really finding difficult. I'm playing around with a whole bunch of things at the moment. Yeah. And even within them, like filmmaking, let's say, like you have to find a niche within filmmaking, and then within that thing, you have to find a niche within that. Yeah. And it's kind of scary to think that I'm going to have to dedicate everything that I have, or a lot of the time that I have, and work really hard for just such a small piece of this industry or of this skill.
I don't know either. I don't know what my niche is. Just to put that out there, I have a following. When I started, I was like, okay, animation, that's my thing, right? But even that's too broad sometimes, because I'll put like CG animation that I've done. I'll put acting that I do for animation. I'll put stop motion animation, which like they're all different audiences, right? I'll just put stunts that I do. Like I do action stuff, right? Like I'll put a stunt in there. I'm like, that's part of my animation. And like, you know, I think people are like, what am I getting on this channel? What am I getting? So I know that I'm a little all over the place, and people don't always know what they get when they follow me, but it's all part of me too. So I'm kind of like selling myself in a way, like as far as like, Justin he likes to move, he likes to animate, he likes puppets, he likes toys, whatever it is. But I do need to focus, and I think I'm going to be doing that a little bit in the next year too. Cool. With my YouTube, especially, I'm making that kind of a focus of me, is like get people from all these other channels to start following me on YouTube. Yeah. So I'm going to get a lot more tutorial based. Really the nuts and bolts of what people go when they type in like, how do I do this? Boom. And they're going to have access to it from me. Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about is how certain creators can get away almost with doing anything. So let's say I'm a fan of YouTuber A, right? When I first got drawn in to watch YouTuber A, they might have been doing cooking content, let's say. So they did like really entertaining cooking videos. So then I watched them to the point where I'm like, okay, well, I really like YouTuber A now. So when YouTuber A builds a platform on cooking content, they might be able to go like a little bit further and be like, okay, we're doing DIY stuff now. Well, it's relatively similar, cooking, DIY. And then from there, they branch out even more. And to the point where now, because they have so many people liking them for who they are, they can then get away with doing anything that they want. I think when you look at the biggest people on this platform, like PewDiePie, for example, on YouTube, he started out doing scary horror movie videos, and now he's done everything in the book. Wow. Video games is like scary video games like Amnesia, and he's done music, he's done literally anything you can think of, and that man's done it all because he's drawn people in with that content. But they've stayed for him, and then they stay for everything that he does. Yeah. But as a small creator like myself, it's difficult to do that because I'm at the point where I have to draw people in for something.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to build. I think getting that following is first everything, and then obviously having to feed it enough to keep. Like for me, I know I have such divided audiences that if I don't feed some video game people, they're going to leave. If I don't feed some stop motion people, they possibly will leave. If I don't feed some, like base entertainment stuff, then they'll leave. So it's pretty fascinating. Like finding that initial audience and then being able to support it before I branch out as well. Like I'm starting to do toy kind of stuff and collectibles, and they don't do as well as some of my other videos. So you have to find your way, but they are getting fed. So it's like there is some crossover, I guess.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap this one up, I'm just going to head and ask you some kind of quick fire questions. Awesome.
Sure.
So the first one is, what's a piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
My younger self. I guess focus. Just focusing on one thing instead of many things. And it's hard to say because the world has changed so much since I was younger, that being a full kind of broad artist was very beneficial because everything was more general art back then. But focusing on one thing would have still benefited me in the end. I think focusing on your direct goal. What do you want to do? Like if I would have known I would have wanted to be an animator back then, I would have focused 100% of my energy on being an animator, not just learning how to paint backgrounds and sculpt and do the 50 other things that I wanted to do. So that directly is, to me, my younger audience. It would be to focus. If I was giving advice to young people interested in social media, period, these days, it has to be find your niche, because there's so much consumption happening of information. And if you can stand out and make something unique, that's when you're going to find success. There's 30,000 people opening toys, or 30,000 people talking about a certain kind of politics, or 30,000 people, there's too much overlap on these things, and you'll never find the really big success that if you really find something unique, like reading rap lyrics in slow motion, or drinking water 100 different ways, whatever that thing is that makes you special and stand out. I think that's really, really important. I have a buddy, actually, here's one that's really funny, is the guy who actually talked me into trying social media. He said, ant farms. I'm doing an experiment. I'm going to do a post every day about ant farms. And he built a huge audience off of just ant farms because it was specific. And he does silly little things every day about ants and ant farms. And it took off, and he started making money. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Rob's Ants. How did this happen? And it was pure experiment. He was like, I just want to see how it works. Social media works. And it just proved to me like how important that is to have something unique, take something as random as that.
I think the difficulty with that, though, is that there comes a risk of having the ant farms now define your friend, or having the person who drinks all them. You're the person on TikTok who drinks all that water. You're the guy who has the ant farm. So then you don't want to be known as that dude who has the ant farm, right?
Well, here's the interesting thing is he branched off. And he made a new channel. So he has Ant Farm Guy, right? Rob's Ants. And then he has TikTok Sensei. So now he gives advice on how to make a successful TikTok thing with TikTok Sensei. Because he's a martial arts guy, right? So he's like, he uses his martial arts backgrounds with giving advice about TikTok. And it's like, okay, now he has two different followings, right? That he's able to kind of feed over and bounce. If you want to learn about how to be a successful TikToker, come over to TikTok Sensei. And then, and then he built a secondary audience. So yeah, like I think you can branch off, but obviously it's time that you're needing to supply to each one of these, channels. So it's all really fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Next question is, how much of the success that you've had, which, by the way, let's do a quick recap, is an incredible amount of success. Like, you've worked for some of the biggest companies in the game.
Thank you.
There's Blizzard, Nickelodeon with SpongeBob, worked on Paranorman, all of these incredible things. How much of that success is down to your hard work and how much of it is
all
down
all
to
of,
chance?
all of it. All of it. I'll tell all your fans, I always say this, hard work is the easy part. And that's what's I feel sets me apart from so many humans is I have gifts. Sure, I have some gifts, but hard work is my number one gift. It trumps everything because I feel like I can outwork anybody. That's my guts is me is like my dad worked his butt off. My mom worked their butt off. I saw them work their butts off their whole lives. And their success was through hard work. And I just inherited that feeling through modeling, right? And I feel like I can become as good as an artist as my body will work. I will become as successful on TikTok as hard as I work. I will on each one of these stations. It's just putting in the hours. It's putting in the research. Hard work is everything. It really is. It beats talent every time to me. It just does.
The quote that sums that up that I'm sure everybody's heard is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. It's just grind, man. It's just grind. You got to really put in the time because I'll tell you 99.9% of the rest of the world doesn't want to work that hard. So it's easy to beat them. And if you know that, you're going to succeed. Just grind.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what do you think that it is that sets you apart? But I think I already know the answer.
Yeah, man, it really is. The only other thing I can add to the hard work is passion. I love animation. I truly love it. And when you love something, it permeates your cells and it comes out of you. And if you can, of course, like you said, maybe that guy loves rap so much that he wants to do it in slow motion because he knows all these lyrics so much. I love animation. So if I'm able to express that, regardless of if this person over here doesn't like animation, they might sense that about me and feel that in my verb, in how I speak and how I emote. And there's something attractive about that and genuine. So another piece of advice is, of course, do what you love, right? Because you're going to be a lot more successful and it's a lot easier to work. Mm-hmm. Like I grind and I work, but I love my work, right? So it feeds my soul. It doesn't feel the same as like if I'm literally out there digging a ditch all day where I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing what I love and I'm working really hard at it. So it just eases the whole process.
Yeah, and that's something that's really important to remember. I saw this video that puts it into perspective really well. This guy basically does this massive rant about you could basically become the number one person who talks about kazoos, but if you don't give a damn about kazoos, that's not going to feed you all.
Yeah, so, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. And next question would be, is there anything that you regret in your life?
Oh man, I don't think so. Regrets. I really, everything I've done, I have this outlook, right? And I've always had it. I always felt like I was the luckiest dude in the world. That's what I used to just say. In the worst moments of my life, maybe, which I just don't, I'm a pretty positive human being. I've always looked at it as, oh, it's supposed to happen. Say I got fired from a job. It's supposed to happen. Because I'm not supposed to be there. I'm supposed to go over here. Flipping your perspective to a positive place really drives your life. And I always do that. Like anything, I have zero regrets because they always take me to the next place I'm supposed to be. And if I made a mistake, I learned a lesson. Like everything being looked at from a positive perspective is going to take you to a positive place. I mean, it just serves your life. If you crumble and feel depressed and look at things as negative, the world's out to get me, whatever it is, that's what you're going to get. That's all you're going to do. You're going to manifest your destiny. So if you look at and change the picture to everything, being a positive situation or a lesson or movement in life, you're going to succeed, guaranteed, and have a happier existence. I know.
Yeah. And the final question would be, if you had everyone in the world listening to this podcast right now, what would be your message to them?
Oh my gosh. I think my wife used to say this: chase your bliss. And it basically means do what you love, man. It's just going to make you happy. Your cells are going to be happy. If what you love doesn't make any money, who cares? You're happy. You know what I mean? Like, chase your bliss. Work hard, but do what you love. Chase the things that make you happy. Like, I got asked on many of my podcasts or live streams, is it too late for me to become an animator? I'm 30. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry to curse. Are you kidding me? I'm like, you live once. Once. You get one chance to ride this ride we're on planet Earth. Like, live it. Like, I don't care if you're 60 years old. If you don't want to do what you're doing, change paths, get on a different track. Yes, become an animator. I didn't start stop motion animation until I was 30, maybe even 34 or something like that. I don't even remember. Like, it was 12 years ago. So 12, 15 years ago, a long time ago. I just started doing it because I was like, this is something I really wanted to try. I love, and I love animation because I was already doing animation, but I wasn't as satisfied by CG, by the computer, as I am by touching real artwork that I create with my hands. That is so satisfying to me. So absolutely, change paths, chase your bliss, do what you have to do. We get one chance at this life, right? So take chances, make mistakes, and live it. Enjoy, do what you love.
Well, that was a really beautiful message there, Justin.
Yeah.
If people want to find your stuff, where can they go?
On YouTube, Justin Rasch Animation. On Instagram, Justin Rasch Official. On Twitter, Justin Rasch _official. Just type in my name, Justin Rasch, and you're gonna find stuff. Really would appreciate anyone of you coming over, watch some cartoons.
Awesome. Well, Justin, we'll have to do this again when once I've got into animation a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, awesome. Man.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching and listening. A huge thank you to Justin Rasch for coming on this episode of The Bit Between. I've been your host, Sabi Mahmood. You can find me on Instagram at @thesabdog, or subscribe right here on this channel to know exactly when I release a new video or podcast. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful day. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.